Her daughter was dying, and now she's not.
By March of 2022, there was no life left in her. She was completely pale. She did not play. She didn't talk. She didn't smile. And within 2 months, she went from 26 pounds to 36 pounds. And her surgeon looked at her and he goes, "I don't know what you're doing. Please don't tell me, but keep doing it."
Hey everybody, welcome to the Carnivore Revolution. I'm Serena, and this video is brought to you by Purely Tallow Skincare. Lotions you'll love, ingredients you can trust. My special guest today is Jessica Roman, and today we're going to talk about her daughter who, I'm just going to say it like it is, her daughter was dying and now she's not. So we're going to talk about that, get her story, and find out exactly what happened. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I have been seeing you all over social media recently with your very serious videos about how the medical people failed you guys with your daughter, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, they definitely offered surgery and medications first, which is what they're trained to do. And we had to take matters into our own hands.
Yeah, it's so interesting and sad, really. They just aren't given the tools that they need to heal people. Everything is always about the medications and the surgeries instead of kind of getting to the root cause. So let's talk about that. Just tell us about your daughter. Tell us about what happened with her.
Yeah, so my daughter was born, we thought, perfectly healthy at 39 weeks. I did a tub birth. I had no complications, no epidural, no medications, no issues throughout my pregnancy. And then the third day after birth, they realized that she had not yet peed at all. No wet diapers. So thank God the nurse caught that. We were about to go home and they said, "Wait a minute, there's no logged wet diapers." And they opened up her outfit and saw that her stomach was huge. So they brought her to get an x-ray. I was a weeping, sobbing mess. And then she was brought to the NICU when they looked at the x-ray and they realized she had a big distended bladder. Couple days after that, she hadn't pooped still, which is not normal for a newborn. Mm-hmm. They did a barium enema x-ray, and they realized that her colon was malformed. So it should have looked like loopy and structured, and it looked like small intestine. It had no loops, and it was smooth. So they put those two things together and did a blood test for the genetic mutation. And it came back positive for an ACTG2 mutation, which causes MMIHS, which is an absolutely mouthful to say. But basically, it causes all of the smooth muscles in the body, so the small intestine, large intestine, bladder, uterus in girls, to not contract properly because the actin in the cells is not working right. So that causes slow intestinal motility throughout the GI tract, and it causes chronic intestinal pseudoobstruction in the GI tract where parts of the intestine will just stop working, and it causes the bladder to be in constant urinary retention. So she didn't pee a drop. We had to learn how to catheterize her as a newborn before we could bring her home, and she had to be catheterized every 4 hours from birth till just a couple of years ago when we started her on Carnivore. So we brought her home. She did really well breastfeeding, and we tried to start solids with her around 6 months. Didn't go well. She got very constipated. So we stopped, continued breastfeeding, and around 12 months, when she started becoming really interested in food, we started feeding her things that we thought were healthy, like fruits and vegetables, lean meats, and she started getting very distended, very constipated very quickly, to the point where she started losing weight. She stopped eating, and she was just in constant pain. And then she stopped pooping altogether, and she had to get an ileostomy, which is at the end of the small intestine. And they make an opening in the abdomen, and everything empties into a bag. So we thought that that would be it. That would be the cure. And it led to so many complications, and it didn't solve anything in terms of her distension. Now her small intestines were just huge and distended. So she had surgery after surgery. She was 100% dependent on TPN. And every time she would eat, she was getting pseudo-obstructions now and vomiting green bile that was backing up from her intestines up through the stomach and out. It was gruesome. And she lived in the hospital. We couldn't.
How old was she at this point?
At this point, it started around 16 months with the pseudo-obstructions. So it was very quick decline from 12 months to 16 months. Then she got repeat central lines placed in her arms. And eventually we had to get one placed in her chest because those kept failing. So she was having surgery after surgery. 1 month, she had 3 surgeries in a row, like week after week, because the central lines kept failing. So then we opted to put one in her chest, which is a very permanent option. And that finally solved the central line issue. But now she was on TPN for all of her calories. And TPN it goes directly into the main artery of the heart. So it's processed through the blood. That's how she was getting her calories, through her blood, because she could not process anything through her GI system. And TPN is basically GMO soy and corn syrup into the veins. It destroys the liver and kidneys, and it was destroying her liver and her kidneys. Her levels were starting to get bad. And then after so many repeat surgeries and so many rounds of antibiotics and pain medications, she was just a shell of a child. By March, she was born in 2019 in August. And by March of 2022, there was no life left in her. She was completely pale. She did not play. She didn't talk. She didn't smile. It was like no one was home. She didn't even walk. She wouldn't get off the couch. She just sat on the couch watching TV. Couldn't get her to make eye contact with me. Nothing. It was really painful, but it forced us. And we were looking for answers this whole time. My husband is a very godly, faithful man. And from the start, he said to me, we're not going to accept this. We're not going to take on this diagnosis. Even though it's in her DNA, we're not going to own this, and we're not going to become victims. We're going to figure this out. And I have to credit him because he kept me from feeling hopeless. So we've continued to research, and finally I found information about candida. And that led me to find a GAPS practitioner who walked me through the GAPS diet. And I said to her, this diet has a lot of very fermentable things in it, and I know that she doesn't tolerate fermentable foods. She said, well, what about the no-plant GAPS diet? And I was like, yes, I know she tolerates meat. That could work. We knew that she would do well on meat, but we didn't know how to get her enough calories because we didn't even think of fat as an option, right? Mm-hmm. It was completely off of the radar. We were giving her like chicken breast.
Also, you can't eat just meat and survive, right? So that's not something that you ever probably would have thought about. Like, well, she can't eat just meat, right? Yeah. That's what I would have been thinking at that time. Well, she can't just eat meat. She has to have
something else.
Right, yeah.
This is a conversation that my husband and I had, actually. And thank God he's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And he had done carnivore in the past, carnivore and greens. Like, so not true carnivore, but he was eating mostly chicken thighs and fatty steak. And he was like, yeah, you can eat just meat and survive. I was like, absolutely not. He's like, I've done it. This is a conversation that we had. I was like, what do you mean she's not going to eat bread? Like, what else is there besides bread?
I mean, bread is life, isn't it?
Yeah, really. So we ended up finding the no-plant GAPS diet and very slowly introducing it to her feeding tube. So we were buying Amish chickens from the Amish country that were raised properly with no antibiotics, no soy, no corn, and cooking these huge pots of meat stock for her. And then we would blend the broth and the meat and the skin and the organs all together and put it directly into her feeding tube. And the first couple days were rough, first couple weeks. She had an increase in pain, an increase in gas because all of the yeast that had grown throughout her very slow intestine started to die and release the gases, which is more fermentation happening. So I was constantly venting her tube to get the gas out of her stomach so it wouldn't cause a pseudo-obstruction. We were successful. We made it through. For the first time after about 2 weeks, she was laying on the couch so I could empty her pouch, and I looked at her stomach and it was flat for the first time since she was a baby.
Ever.
Yeah. Well, since she had been exclusively breastfed. And I was taking pictures and so excited, sending them to everyone. She started gaining weight. She started hopping off the couch and going to play. Her cheeks got pink. Her hair grew so quickly once she was nourished. And within 2 months, she went from 26 pounds to 36 pounds. And I mean, she was a chunky 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old. And she just looked so beautiful and healthy so fast. It was remarkable to see.
That's incredible. And was it then that your friends and family started saying, you can't just feed her meats? I mean, you see the difference, but were they still saying to you, you can't do this?
You know, I think both my husband and I have a reputation for being very stubborn and doing what we think is best, regardless of what other people think. So we didn't get a lot of opinions.
That's awesome.
Lucky that my family was very supportive because they could see. And my husband's family, if they said anything to him, he didn't pass it along to me because he knows I wouldn't have taken it to heart. So
what about the doctors? Like at this point, you're still having normal doctor visits with her, right? I mean, she wasn't thriving. She was, I mean, if you'd asked a doctor at that point, their opinion probably would have been she wasn't going to make it right before you first started feeding her this way. Mm-hmm. So like, what did the doctors say when you went in?
Well, we brought her in for a checkup with surgery, and it had been a couple months. And her surgeon looked at her, looked at me, took her weight, and he goes, I don't know what you're doing. Please don't tell me, but keep doing it.
Or did you tell him?
No, I didn't tell him.
You didn't?
No, it was very much a fight to allow us to make home blended feeds to begin with. They wanted her on conventional G-tube feeds, which for your audience that doesn't know, it's corn syrup, canola oil, and then elemental vitamins, which are impossible to digest and absorb. Even the healthy G-tube feeds for medically complex kids, there is no animal protein, there's no animal fat, and it's extremely hard for them to digest and absorb. So they use healthy forms of carbohydrates like organic mango juice that they've concentrated or brown rice syrup. But still, the mechanism is the same. It's feeding pathogens in the gut of these children who have extreme gut dysbiosis. You're giving them high carbohydrates and causing candida overgrowth and pathogen overgrowth that's making them inflamed and more weak.
And so like if you're an advocate for anything at all, and you're an advocate for the doctors didn't know about this, and then the ingredients in those feeding tubes because they are so awful. And so I think a good way to equate this for people is we see a lot of talk about how terrible hospital food is, right? You see a lot of posts. I see a lot of posts about that. And it's like the equivalent of somebody like a type 2 diabetic goes to the hospital because they need treatment. And then for breakfast, they give them oatmeal, orange juice, and an apple. And then they just dose them more insulin instead of feeding them the proper foods that are going to stabilize their blood sugar. And so you were having these issues with your daughter who needed this GI tube to survive. And then they're just putting these horrible foods in it. And it's not just your daughter. It's everybody who's on a GI feeding tube. That's what they get, is those terrible ingredients all mixed together that are just wreaking havoc on their bodies, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great parallel to draw as well. I've never thought about that with the diabetics, but yeah, it's 100% true. You're giving them food that they cannot tolerate. Their bodies cannot process this. It's causing pseudo-obstructions. It's causing more distension. It's causing more pathogenic overgrowth, which is leading to more malabsorption of nutrients. They had her on Orgain, which people think Orgain is healthy. It's a protein shake. It is the worst thing especially for children, because it's loaded with sugar. And yeah, kids love it because it tastes delicious. I've had it myself. It's a chocolate milkshake.
Right.
That's just full of sugar.
Doesn't just taste like a milkshake. It is a milkshake, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And then they add in a couple vitamins and they call it healthy. Or, and it's the same as they're doing to the elderly. It's not just children. Elderly who have feeding tubes are being fed this absolute garbage. And what finally convinced the doctors was, I was on the phone arguing with them. I said, give me a packet. Give me a packet of all the G-tube feeds on the market, and I will tell you if there's one that she can tolerate based on what I know she can have. They were like, okay. They dropped me off a book of them. I went through with a highlighter on every page, and I highlighted the ingredients in every one that she could not have. There was not one that was safe for her. And they were arguing with me. They're like, you're being really difficult right now. And I said, I can't even tell you the tension in the conversations. But I said, how can you possibly tell me you have a parent in front of you with a chronically ill child who is happy to make her G-tube feeds myself with fresh, whole foods that I know are going to nourish her body? How can you possibly tell me that something off the shelf with preservatives is going to be better for her than what I'm going to cook her at home and make myself? And that is what the doctor literally was like, just do it. Please leave me alone. Stop asking me.
I was thinking,
like nerve.
Yeah, and in their defense, it's not really their fault. They can't, right? I mean, legally, they can't endorse that. Isn't that right? The advice that they give has to be the medically approved advice, right? They can't just say, yes, do that. Like, they're not allowed, right?
Well, so they can allow for homemade G-tube feeds, but they have to have 60% carbs. Because it has to follow, get this, you're going to love this.
I do love it.
To follow the food pyramid. For children who are dying, they have to have 60% carbohydrates. So they told me, if you're going to do this, you have to add blackstrap molasses and blended rice. Tell me what she's getting from that. So I said, fine. And I did it. And I called them and said, hey, she's having a pseudo-obstruction because of your recommendation and your negligence. I'm going to do it my way now. And you're going to pull me off the dietitian's roster. And we never had to see the dietitian again.
That's awesome. So what are her doctors saying now? I mean, she's doing great now, right? She's thriving, right?
Yes. Yeah, she's doing amazing. She hasn't had her central line in years, which is unprecedented for these children. And I work with 7 other kids who have this same diagnosis, families from around the world who have read my book. They've found me, and I've taught them what we did for my daughter so that they could work with their medical team and try it for their kids. And every single one of them has improved, some of them more significantly than my daughter right off the bat. So one little boy from the United States gained 15 pounds since we started working together in December. And he's back in sports, back in school every day. This kid lived in the hospital. He was not able to leave. He was vomiting multiple times, 3-4 times every night, completely stopped. He's off conventional G-tube feeds. So he also sees the same team that my daughter sees. And many of these kids do, because there's so few specialists that see kids with this disease. So they are listening. They're working with me. There's going to be a case series that will be published on all of these kids. So it will be in the medical literature, I'm hoping by the end of this year. But it's a process.
That's amazing. You're doing such a great job. Do you notice, so you said you've been working with people from all over the world. Do you notice there's a difference with treatments in other countries versus the way they are already treating people here in America? Are they more open to these ideas in other countries?
So South America seems to be open to dietary intervention more so. Europe, absolutely not, which is surprising. I am very grateful that she was seen here in the US because the mismanagement of TPN in these other countries really concerns me. And I have told some of these other families, you need to bring your child to the US so they can be properly managed with TPN, because it's getting injected directly into the veins, it has to be perfect proportion to the blood work. So you can't give a little too much magnesium. You can't give a little too much potassium or too little, or you'll have a child that is in the hospital. And that did happen to my daughter once. Her potassium got so low, she ended up in the hospital with heart palpitations because her TPN was not correct, right? And that was a fluke thing. But I'm happy she was here because the turnaround is very quick. Whereas like in Europe, once the blood work is done, it takes about 3 weeks to get the new TPN orders. For my daughter, we would get her blood work and the next day we had new TPN bags reflecting that blood work. So it's really concerning how long it takes to process these orders because by then the child could have many more complications. But in terms of dietary intervention, South America, I would say, is probably the most open, and Korea also seems to be open. But the United States and Europe, the Western countries, are very much not on board.
Yeah, and our dietary guidelines are almost identical to the ones in Europe, I believe, or in most places with so many carbohydrates. And so this is just another one of those instances where they're prescribing the foods that don't work just like they do for people with IBS and colitis, and they tell them they need more fiber when that just makes it so much worse. And people just don't realize, and they do what their doctor says. They follow the guidelines because the government is supposed to be protecting us from things, and the government is not protecting us from things. Since the 1960s, they have not protected our health. Since they created those guidelines and made them backwards, they have not been protecting us at all, and it just continues to be that way.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's unbelievable what you see. And I've seen kids with similar diagnoses to my daughter. I don't know if they had the exact same one, but at the hospital, eating ice cream with the nurses. These are kids that, unfortunately, if you spend a lot of time in a children's hospital, you'll realize that there's a lot of children who get dropped off and never get picked up because the parents don't want to have the burden of taking care of them at home, doing their TPN, doing their G-tube feeds, caring for their ostomies. So you'll see these kids walking around with the nurses with an ice cream and huge distended tummies where they can barely walk to begin with. And they're getting ice cream and having pancakes for breakfast. So it's really, really sad to see. But I think it's important for parents to realize that regardless of how medically complex your child is or how healthy your child is, their health starts in your kitchen at home.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the discipline to keep your child healthy, they will get chronic illnesses. If you feed them a standard American diet, they will end up in a position where they have bad things happen, unfortunately, to their health, if not now, down the line. So it's a question of, are you going to set your child up for success now? So for the rest of their lives, they are on a path to know what a healthy lifestyle looks like and they can execute it themselves? Or are you going to give them something that they have to undo later? And that all comes back to our own addictions, right? Parents will say, well, how do I get my child to eat this? And I say, well, what are you eating? Oh, well, yeah, but what about that? No, what are you eating? What's in your house? Because if you're sitting there eating ice cream in front of your kid, they're going to eat it.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And if you're having burger patties for breakfast in the morning, they're going to eat that.
Yeah, when people say, I don't know, she just won't eat unless she eats, goldfish and macaroni and cheese. Well, who's buying the goldfish and macaroni and cheese? If you don't give them what they want for a meal or two, they're going to eat what you put in front of them because they're going to be hungry. And that's how it works. That's how it works. That's how you change them, is you don't buy the stuff that you don't want them to eat. And all of this starts, all of the health and nutrition and fixing of things that are wrong, it all starts with meat and fat. If you can tolerate, or your children can tolerate, the fruits and vegetables after that, then fine. But start with the meat and the fat. Make sure they're getting the bulk of their calories from that. And there won't be as much room for the other stuff anyway. There won't be as much room for the ice cream or the chips and the goldfish and things like that. So make sure they're eating the good things before you even try to give them the things that aren't optimal for their health.
Yeah, you're not doing them any favors. I think that we love our kids and we know how much we love those foods because they're so addictive. So we want to share that pleasure of food with our children, but we don't realize that we're really doing it at their detriment. It's harming them. It's harming their microbiome. Even kids with healthy microbiomes really can't handle sugar on a daily basis and keep a healthy microbiome. They can't. It will cause pathogenic overgrowth and throw off every system in their body.
I get a lot of pushback from people when I talk about how food addiction is really the same as being an alcoholic or a drug addict. I get a lot of pushback for that. People say it's not. But when I say to those same people, okay, Give those foods up then for 14 days. Do it just for 14 days. Give up all carbohydrates, all snack foods, only eat meat and fat for the next 14 days. They don't make it a day. And then they say, oh, it's not that I'm addicted. I just didn't want to do it anymore. No, it's that you're addicted. And I do believe that the food and carbohydrate addiction can be worse than a drug or alcohol addiction, because food for many of us is a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil because we have to have it. It's not like you have to have alcohol or you have to have cocaine or whatever your drug of choice is. You don't have to have that. And if it's around, you can switch your friend group. You can not go to parties anymore. Whatever it is you do where you find those things, you can eliminate those events from your life, but you can't eliminate food events from your life. Food is everywhere. Everything we do, especially in America, everything we do revolves around food. Barbecue, banquet for your kids, sporting events at the end of the season, even like meetings, you go to a board meeting, there's food there. Like nothing. There is nothing in business, life, fun, pleasure. There's nothing that doesn't involve food. So the food is everywhere. So if you are an addict, and most of us are, you have to figure out how to navigate that a lot differently than a drug addict or an alcoholic.
Yeah.
It's because we have to have it. It's going to be at every party you go to. It's literally everywhere. And I think that that's really sad that it doesn't get that recognition. And I think if we could get to a point where it does get that recognition, I think some of these things might start to change. Some of these things in hospitals and nursing homes, like all the food stuff, the food pyramid, I think my plate, whatever we call it now, I think some of those things would start to change if we acknowledged the food and carbohydrate addiction.
I 100% agree with you. And one of my best friends she just got her master's degree in counseling. And if you ask her about addiction and sugar addiction, she will say, and she's worked in addiction for 10 years, and she will tell you that it looks exactly the same as drug addiction. And you're exactly right. It's the hardest thing because you don't go to the gas station and there's just cocaine there.
Exactly.
But you go to the gas station and there's donuts and chocolate bars and all of these things. And it's having the discipline is really difficult. But I have been telling people now, when people say, I don't think I could do that. My daughter is almost 6 years old. She's 5. She has been doing this for 3 years. Not once has she eaten a blueberry, a strawberry, a piece of watermelon. Not one single time has she slipped up, because she knows the consequences. There was one time when we first started, and I won't go into the whole story, but she had crackers at a family party, and she had 4 surgeries back to back, emergency, almost died, and that's when she was diagnosed with intestinal failure. After that, she understands. I took videos of her in the hospital during that time so I could show her later the pain she was in and what she went through. She's 5 years old, and she has more self-control than I do. To be completely honest, right? I can't say that I've never slipped up in the 3 years that I've been doing it with her, but she has not once eaten a grain of rice. And if she can do it, then we can use her as a role model for ourselves and say, I want to treat my body as good as this little girl does,
Yeah. Yeah. And I've talked to people who, like, for instance, have cancer, or their children have cancer, and I have recommended the carnivore diet. Like, have you tried this? And because they'll say, we've tried everything. And so I'll say, did you try carnivore? One family in particular. And they said, I think that's really unrealistic because she's 8. She's dying of cancer. Literally in the process of dying. And she's 8. Yeah, I understand that. But if those foods aren't in the house, and I understand you have other kids, it's not good for them either to eat those foods, And so I just think that people dismiss it so quickly because it seems like it's so hard. Well, which is harder? What's harder, right?
Yeah.
I think it's worth a shot, And her response was just that she's a child. That's really unrealistic. And I just feel like it's not really unrealistic for a child. It's not really unrealistic for anybody. But you can do it, and you can look and you can see stories online where people have healed themselves. And even if it didn't, you've done everything you could. You've done everything that you knew to do, even if it doesn't work. And then a couple of weeks later, they're juice fasting for their daughter, and trying all of these other things. But somehow the all meat thing is too not good. And I feel like the juicing is much harder than, frying up a steak or a burger for somebody. And everybody has to make their own choices. And, the bottom line is it's a horrible situation no matter how you look at it, and it's unfair and it sucks. But I understand the thing where people would say it's too hard, but I can't imagine anything being too hard to save my child.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the same attitude that I had. And I've spoken to, I can't tell you, maybe 40 plus other families with MMIHS. Like I said, 7 have chosen this path that we did with our daughter. All of their kids have improved. Other families have literally said to me, this is heartbreaking. My daughter's going to die anyway. I'm going to let her enjoy her life. And I was like, and we're talking about a child with the same diagnosis as my daughter. And I'm watching videos and I'm not judging.
Right, I know.
But this is how indoctrinated we are and how much people want to take on the victimhood of a diagnosis rather than taking a stance and trying anything they can to save their child. And I'm watching this child eat fruit snacks and goldfish and mac and cheese, and she's so distended she can't even walk. And she was older than my daughter at the time. She was probably 4 in the video. And mom has to pull her around in a wagon with her IV pole because she can't walk because her stomach is so big from eating these foods. And I'm like, same thing. Isn't it worth a shot? Isn't it worth a try? This is your child. And if it doesn't work, at least you can say, we tried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it would work.
Right. But it would work. And it's that the food thing it's like the only addiction that's accepted.
Yeah.
And you can shame people for not eating those foods. You would never shame an alcoholic or a drug addict for not using those, but people look at you and say, oh, don't you want to enjoy life? Like if I say to somebody like the once in a blue moon I had, a cherry Coke Zero or something like that, they'll say, good for you. No, not good for me. Like ask me why I had it. Ask me if I'm stressed or like check on me. If you ever catch me with something like that, check on me. Ask me if I'm okay. Ask me what's wrong. You know what I mean? Because even it's been more than 4 years for me and I still fall, I still have problems, sometimes because of the food addiction. And so like don't applaud me for eating something that is going to make me feel bad. Ask me not to eat it. Say to me, don't do that. You're going to feel worse afterwards and it. Like, make me feel dumb for even considering it if that's what it takes to knock it out of my hand or whatever. Like we should be helping each other and encouraging each other when we want to get better, when we want to be healthier, when we want to live longer, instead of making people feel bad about it. But again, it's the only kind of addiction that you can like shame people into using their drug of choice.
Yeah. I think the treat yourself culture is so toxic too, because then you're saying to yourself, like, I'm stressed. I worked hard. I deserve to eat an entire pack of gluten-free Oreos.
Right.
Speaking from experience.
Same.
It's not helping you any, right? And not only do you feel awful afterwards, you completely throw off your hormones, completely throw off your metabolism. Now you got to get back into ketosis. Good luck. That stinks. Not fun. And it's just this vicious cycle where, we have to be encouraging each other and finding ways that we can cope with our stress. It's so hard sometimes. Like I have 3 little ones. I have my daughter who's almost 6. I have a 3, almost 4-year-old, and I have a 1-year-old. So between my 2 boys and my daughter, sometimes it gets tough.
Yes.
And I will say to my husband, like, we have to encourage each other to go to the gym and work off the stress.
Yeah.
Not go to the grocery store and get a treat, right? Or how, like, even a watermelon, even that is enough to, like, throw me out of ketosis, into inflammation, and feel terrible for a few days trying to get back into ketosis. So it's not worth it.
Yeah, people tend to look at it, and I'm not saying that I've never done this, but people tend to look at it like, oh, it's just this one thing. It's just this one whatever. But it's not. It does so much inside. And I mean, if we're being honest, I just did the sugar diet thing. Oh my gosh.
What is that?
It's like the idea is you eat sugar exclusively in the absence of fat and protein to lose weight and reduce inflammation. And there actually is real science behind it that I'm not telling people to try this. I'm not endorsing it because it was a terrible choice for me. It was awful. But the idea is it releases a hormone called FGF21 in your system that helps increase your metabolism and helps you lose weight and burn fat and can actually reduce inflammation. But it's like sugar, honey, maple syrup, fruit, gummy bears, Sour Patch Kids, like just simple sugars like that.
Wow.
And there is some science behind it. Nick Norris did a video on it recently. There are lots of videos about it, not encouraging people to do it, but just on the science-backed part of it. But it led me into a full month of sourdough bread, candy. The one thing I didn't do if I was binging anyway was I should have had some stinking chocolate if I was going to do it. Like, it was like I would wake up in the morning and I would say, I'm going to do it. I'm going to have the berries with some honey or maple syrup. And I would do okay for breakfast, but then I'd get bloated from the berries. Like, it's not good for you. It doesn't matter who you are. It causes problems. Even the berries with maple syrup, which is next level good, by the way, but don't do it. I'm not doing it. It's very good. But by evening, I wanted real food by evening. And so a lot of people would have like some lean protein and a starch like rice or something in the evening. But mine was, I would try the lean protein and I would say, well, if other people are eating rice, I can have sourdough. And I would have the sourdough, but I would put a tablespoon of butter on it. Like, I didn't do it right. The days that I did it right, I lost weight, but I didn't feel good for a month. I did this for almost a month and it was just miserable. I gained 8 pounds. It was like, and it's not the sugar diet's fault. It was my fault. I didn't do it right. And if I had done it right, maybe it would have worked. There are people that it's working for, but it's not the healthy way to do it. You can also get that hormone, that FGF21, by eating exclusively fats in the absence of protein and carbs.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is amazing. If you've never tried a fat fasting is amazing. Like, I love it. I hope to try that. Is my love language. We've taken a whole other turn on this video here, but I get a lot of inquiries about the fat fasting. Lots of heavy cream, lots of butter. Actually, that's all I've had so far. Today it's almost 3:00 and all I've had is frost heavy cream with some butter in it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And with the heavy cream, you can turn it into eggnog. You can add egg yolks to it and turn it into eggnog. You can, after you add the egg yolks to it, you can bake it and turn it into a custard, like a creme brulee.
Ridiculous. You're making me hungry.
I know, it's so good. Or you can turn it into ice cream. Like, the egg yolks and the heavy cream can make like a bunch of different things. So you can have that same thing 3 times a day, just made it differently. It's really amazing. And then like beef fat trimmings, you can have tallow. It's like just the fats. Really amazing. So I'm encouraging people, if they want that FGF21 to be turned on, to do the fat fasting instead, because then you get to stay carnivore and you can feel good and not have to get back into ketosis. Like you said before, that's so hard. Getting back into ketosis is rough, but it took me 30 days to come to my senses. And I've been fat fasting a lot since then. I think that's what I always have a really hard time getting back on track if I fall off. And the fat fasting has helped me so much because I'm full and I'm satisfied. And I get to have the creme brulee, the ice cream, and the whipped cream all day long.
Best stuff.
I know. That's why I'm a carnivore. No, I'm not.
You do any sweeteners? Like, for my daughter, we use only stevia powder. Like, if I'll make her like a little lemonade. So she'll have like just lemon juice with a little bit of stevia. Do you do that or no?
On occasion, I try not to, but I don't find that it makes me crave things. So like my electrolytes have stevia in them, and I drink electrolytes every day. So I have found myself like, well, I'll go ahead and put just a little bit of stevia in this batch of ice cream, so everybody else, in my house will eat it too. But I try not to, because then well, I guess maybe it does make me crave things, because then I find myself sweetening a lot more things than I don't do. But I figure it's stevia, you know what I mean? And I check my glucose quite often. I never notice a spike from it or anything like that. So, to each his own. Everybody's does carnivore, kind of their own way. So I think if having a little bit of stevia here and there is like what keeps you on track and keeps you carnivore, then go for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. I see it the same way, especially for like my kids, because I notice honey. If my 3-year-old has too much honey, he's just crazy, bouncing off the walls. And obviously my daughter can't have honey at all.
Right.
It's just pure sugar. So the stevia is like a nice balance where I make little lemonade ice pops for them. So it's just lemon juice. That's the only plant she can have is like lemons.
That's amazing.
So she'll have lemon juice, stevia, water, and I'll make ice pops. And I'll also make the same mix, add a couple drops of methylene blue and gelatin, mix it up, and make a nice blue jello for them. So that's like their treats,
Yeah.
It's just something to make them feel like normal kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So is your whole house carnivore right now? Is that or mostly carnivore?
So my sons eat fruit and vegetables.
Okay.
But they're mostly protein. And then my daughter is 100% carnivore. I'm keto and my husband's keto. So we're kind of all over the place right now. Mm-hmm. But this is what works for us. I go back and forth between keto and carnivore.
Yeah.
My youngest is sensitive to dairy. So I haven't been able to have my heavy cream and everything because I'm still breastfeeding him.
Okay.
That's been really hard.
Sorry.
That's what keeps me on carnivore is the heavy cream.
I'm like, oh, you should just eat heavy cream. And you're like,
That's all I would. When I'm done breastfeeding him, I'm going to go a month and just drink heavy cream all day.
I don't blame you. It's so good.
It's so delicious.
That can keep me on track. Like, yesterday I woke up craving sourdough bread and, like bad to the point where I had to throw it away. We had a little bit in the house because my daughter found a sourdough dealer recently that makes sourdough bread. And my problem is having the sourdough in the house all the time, basically for everybody else, but I would end up eating it. And I wanted it so bad yesterday. Like I had to put it in the trash and pour some soap on it. Like I was going to eat the sourdough bread. And you know what? The heavy cream, I'd rather have heavy cream. I'd rather have some whipped cream than the sourdough anyway.
Oh my gosh, me too. Every time.
On track. Yeah.
It's just delicious.
It's amazing. Okay. We went way off track there for a few minutes. I think that you're amazing. I think it's awesome that you're standing up for this and you're out there, especially talking about, I think those GI feeding tubes. I think it's amazing to kind of stand up for that. And I think that what you did with the doctor, with the stack of papers with the highlighter, I think it's amazing. And they should wish that other parents were as difficult as you.
Yeah. That you care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how they know their kids are going to get better is if they're difficult, because you have to stand up for yourself. You have to be your own advocate and the advocate for your family, especially for your children who can't speak for themselves. So I just think that you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for all that you do, because people need the awareness of this diet in order to be able to heal themselves of things like this. If we don't know that it's an option, then we'll never be able to try it. So thank you for spreading the word. And thank you so much for having me.
So thank you so much for joining me. And I want everybody to be able to go out and buy your book. So tell us about that real quick.
Yes, my book is called Dying to Thriving. It is about my daughter, her story, and it's available on Amazon. And I go through all of the details from birth all the way till now. And I talk about a couple other children in there with her same diagnosis. And I also go through how we make the G-tube feeds from scratch for her, which a lot of my clients and people who have found me have brought this book to their medical teams in order to convince them that it's something worth trying for their own children. So definitely check it out if it's something that interests you.
That's amazing, guys. Go get Jessica's book right now, please.